Remember, we were told that James Gunn taking over DC was going to save the entire superhero genre. We were promised a clean slate, a master plan, and a return to comic book greatness. We were told the era of studio chaos, fragmented timelines, and box office bombs was finally over. Instead, what have we actually gotten? A complete derailment of iconic characters, self indulgent writing, and a brand new cinematic universe that feels like it's crashing and burning right out the gate. Let's start with the absolute disaster that is the recent Supergirl movie. They took one of the most iconic, inspiring heroines in comic book history and completely butchered her standalone debut. Instead of a cinematic masterpiece to solidify this new universe, we got a messy, amateurish nightmare. The editing was completely disjointed, jumping all over the place as if the studio and the director couldn't figure out what kind of story they actually wanted to tell. And let's talk about the writing. It was absolutely drowned in misplaced, cringeworthy humor. You have a character with a deeply tragic background, and yet the movie spends its time deflecting any real emotional weight with constant forced jokes that flat out miss. Gunn wanted to give us a punk rock version of Kara, but instead he gave us a box office disaster that completely alienated the fan base and is tracking to lose the studio's staggering $100 million. When you have reports coming out that there were massive behind the scenes arguments over competing cuts of the film, it's a massive red flag. The executive interference and the identity crisis on screen made it painfully obvious that the new regime has no idea how to handle standard DC nobility. Then we have Peacemaker Season 2, the John Cena series. Look, the first season had its fun moments, but Season 2 completely lost the plot. It became the ultimate example of James Gunn's worst habits as a creator. It was utterly self-indulgent again, filled with bizarre, unhinged tangents that did absolutely nothing to move the actual universe forward. We had characters wandering into alternate dimensions, dealing with completely absurd stakes, and trying to balance a narrative that was supposed to somehow tie into the broader universe. It didn't work. The narrative whiplash was real, and the entire season felt bloated, messy, and exhausted. It completely burned out the goodwill of the first season by prioritizing random gags and narrative chaos over meaningful storytelling. Why are we spending so much time on self-contained wacky side quests when the main cinematic universe is supposedly desperate for a clear, unified direction? What we are seeing across the board is a total lack of respect for the source material and a refusal to just tell a solid, epic story. Where do we know that from? Star Wars. Gunn's DCU was supposed to be a savior, a unified vision of hope, classic heroism, and narrative structure. However, instead of a strong base, the whole foundation is already crumbling. If this is the blueprint for the future of DC, we are in for a very long, very disappointing ride. The corporate hype machine can tell us everything is fine, but the box office numbers and the fan backlash don't lie. The Gunverse is in serious trouble and the hype is officially dead. I'm just here to tell the facts.